The materials we're going to need for this project are first some paper. It can be freezer paper or regular paper, which to trace our template. We're going to use some batting. It can be a low loft batting. This is still optional. And some heavy interfacing. This can be fusible or not, whichever you want. Some fusible web. Fusible web or basting spray. You will see later on, the choice is really yours. And then a zipper, which will be the size of the the length of the side of the triangle that we will be using. And naturally fabric. You will need, you can do this out of two different fabrics, one for the purse itself, one for the lining, or you can use the same fabric for both. In this case, I'm going to use one of these fabrics for my lining, and I am going to use this piece of fabric collage that I have made. So this will be the outside of my purse, and I will be using then this fabric for the lining. So the first thing that we want to do is cut our triangle template, and this can be any size you'd like. The only thing what's important is that it be an equilateral triangle, meaning that every side is the same in length. Mine, I think, measures about 7.5 to 8 inches. I think it's about 7.5 inches. And I like cutting it out of freezer paper so that I can iron it onto my fabric before cutting. As far as the fabric piece, you just need to make sure that it is large enough to fit 4 triangles on. And I will be cutting it like this, and then probably like this. I'll have some fabric left over. Just make sure that you have enough. So the first decision you have to make is how many layers you want to work with. The choices are, you can work with just a layer of batting, of thin batting in between the top layer and your lining, or you could use some stiff interfacing, some pretty thick interfacing, or you could use both. And in my case, I'm going to use both. I kind of like the softness on the one side, but also the interfacing helps give the purse a little bit of stiffness. Here also you have the choice of either fusing these layers together with something, with a fusible web like Wonder Under, or you can simply spray baste the layers too. So I have fused my 4 layers together. I actually spray basted mine, and I cut one of the edges straight so that I would have a straight line where I could place my template, and I have ironed the freezer paper template onto it to make my first cut. So I will cut 4 triangles out of this piece next. So once you've cut out your 4 triangle pieces, then you will need to finish the edges. And here you can choose to either use a zigzag stitch, or you could perhaps use a blanket stitch, or, as I have done here, just a simple overcast stitch. Okay? And you need to do this on all 4 pieces. The next step involves putting our zipper on, and there are 2 ways that you could do this. The one is to just use the zipper as a decorative element and sew it on top of each piece, like this. Or you can bind the edges of the 2 sides of the triangles where the zipper will be attached. You can bind them. Okay, and in that case you would sew the zipper on the bottom. Either way works well. It's your choice, really. Now we're going to prepare the handle. The measurement that I'm going to use here is 16 inches long, and the width of the fabric is 3 inches, and then a piece of batting that's cut 1 inch wide and 1/2 inch shorter than the length of the fabric. So this would be 15.5 long. So press one of the long edges down along the whole length 1/4 of an inch. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wrap the piece of batting. What we'll do is we'll fold one side up like this and press it and encase the piece of batting. What you want to do is get this fold as close to the edge as possible, and we will run a stitch along this whole length to enclose the batting, and then on the other side too we will stop stitching. So here you can see the finished edges I've stitched on both sides. This is the side where we closed it off, and then just to make it even I've top stitched on the other side. And it's also a good idea to finish off your raw edges with a little zigzag stitch. Now you can use this as is, this handle as is, but I think that a really nice additional touch is to add some decorative stitching, and this also makes it a little bit firmer. Okay, here you can see my finished handle. I've just put one line of decorative stitching on it, and I think it just adds a special touch. So to attach it to the bag, what we're going to do is you can sort of eyeball this and just estimate about 1/2 inch in from the edge and about 1/4 of an inch down from the edge of the binding or the edge of the zipper if you haven't used a binding. So I'm going to place it more or less right here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to run a stitch right here. I'm going to stitch right across here, and then after I've stitched this I'm going to fold it up and stitch it again up here, and that should hold it really nicely in place. I've attached my handle, you can see both sides, and now we can start to assemble the purse. You can then sew all 4 triangles together. Here we have the first 2 that were joined right with the zipper, and then the 3rd one. This 4th one then will be the bottom piece. At this point though, to assemble the bag, to enclose it, you do have to pick it up, okay, and you will be zigzagging like this. You will not be able to put the purse down flat on your machine anymore. So you will zigzag along this edge and then along this edge, and just keep going, okay, and until you go back up the final edge. A couple of things I forgot to mention is that once you start enclosing the sides, it can be really difficult to get all the way down to the corner. So you might want to just zigzag stitch till as far as you can go, maybe within an inch and a half to the corner, and then finish that part by hand with a little whip stitch. It's especially hard at this part up here where the zipper is. So I would also recommend that in these parts that you whip stitch this last part by hand, and that you use some fray check on all of the corners just to make sure, because these are the most fragile parts and the hardest to get to on the sewing machine. Okay, but that's the only challenging part, if you wish, of this project. And there you see our little pyramid purse ready to go.